Hello, this is WD.
FM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. We're your hosts, Bri Marketing Manager.
And Chris Mullen, Senior Marketing and Communications Coordinator at the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Welcome back to our monthly Museum Musings episode, where we keep you updated on upcoming museum happenings. Make sure you are subscribed to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Visit our YouTube channel at WD-FM Museum or read the show notes from today's podcast posted to our blog for more information and links mentioned today.
Well, let's get right into it. On Saturday, September 18th, join us for the long-awaited in-person celebration of our newest special exhibition, The Walt Disney Studios and World War II, as exhibition curator Kent Ramsey gives an in-depth talk about this lesser-known yet crucial time period at the Walt Disney Studios, and shares his wealth of knowledge he's gained through more than 15 years of dedicated research on the war. Guests are encouraged to visit the special exhibition after the presentation, but please note, admission to the special exhibition requires a separate reservation booked in advance. Reservations are free for members.
You'll definitely want to join us for that. Kent is such a magnificent storyteller and such a huge historian of World War II. So, it adds more to the story of how the exhibition was put together and some of the really great stories that are being told. So another exciting new program we just announced is Muppet's Haunted Mansion with Dave Goelz and Bill Beretta for an in-person program on Saturday, October 9th. I'm very excited about this one. I'm really, really excited for Muppet's Haunted Mansion in general. In celebration of the premiere of Muppet's Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus, join Muppets performers Dave Goelz and Bill Beretta, the hands and voices behind the Great Gonzo and Pippet the King Prawn, as they share insight into their experiences working with Jim Henson and the Muppets, discuss their favorite behind-the-scenes moments from the spooky new special, and introduce special surprise guests to share their own favorite Muppet stories. So you really won't want to miss that one. So please note to ensure a safe and comfortable visiting experience for all. All of our in-person programs as of now will be hosted at a reduced capacity to allow for appropriate social distance between parties. In an abundance of caution and in line with the current San Francisco Department of Public Health recommendations, all ticket holders will be asked for proof of vaccination and photo ID. Photos of vaccine cards or digital vaccine QR codes are acceptable. A negative COVID-19 test will no longer be accepted. Those ineligible to receive vaccines will not be able to attend in-person events at this time. All guests are required to wear a mask that covers their nose and mouth for the duration of the event.
Really excited for that program. I think personally that the Muppets should have a version of every Disney movie and Disney attraction. Can't wait to see not just Muppet Haunted Mansion, but what the Muppets have for us going forward. And speaking of attractions, we recently announced exciting new Studio Series workshops. Studio Series workshops are 90-minute sessions that explore animation principles and techniques. This year, in honor of the Walt Disney World Resort's 50th anniversary celebration, our workshops have been making multiple stops around the resort and delving into its history. Classes are available for both adults and youths ages 7 to 17. Visit our website to see the show notes for this program for more information. Many adventures seen on the silver screen feature treacherous falls from great heights, choreographed fight scenes, and thrilling chases performed by professional stunt actors. Disney's Hollywood Studios commemorates the enthralling art of stunt work in its action-packed theatrical show, and my old home as a cast member, Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. Join us on Saturday, September 25th for Animate a Stunt, as we take a look at how performers execute daring moves in classic live-action and animated films. Then, through 2D hand-drawn animation, animate a character courageously leaping out of a window. That's what we like to call a little bit of movie magic.
The final stop for our studio series and pop-up studio workshops is Magic Kingdom Theme Park. One of the most enchanting objects in the magic carpets of Aladdin attraction in Adventureland is indeed the magic carpet. Journey with us on Saturday, October 9th for Animating a Magic Carpet as we explore the ways in which a magical carpet moves and soars across the sky. Then, using traditional hand-drawn techniques, animate an ordinary rug flying across the page.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I am really glad that we were able to take folks all the way around the Walt Disney World Resort for the Studio Series workshops and pop ups. And we're going to have several more through the end of the year that are going to be announced very soon. So keep an eye out for that. This month, we're going to highlight one particular Disney date since there aren't as many during the month of September. But it's a big one because it's what our next section is all about. Fun and Fancy Free debuted on September 27th, 1947. The package feature film combined two stories, Bongo and Mickey and the Beanstalk. Bri, in honor of our segment, Fun and Fancy Facts, what is your favorite fun and fancy fact about Fun and Fancy Free?
That's a tongue twister. Well, my favorite fun and fancy fact is a bit twofold. It's about the hosting gigs kind of presented in Fun and Fancy Free. Um, I really find it interesting. It was an unprecedented move. Walt took a character from one feature and put him in another when he made Jiminy Cricket the Fun and Fancy Free headliner. He originally appeared in Pinocchio, famously, and he appears throughout the film of Fun and Fancy Free. And from there, Jiminy leaped into his role as a narrator, educator, and MC throughout other Disney projects, most notably on the original Mickey Mouse Club television show. And on the other side of things, ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his wisecracking sidekick Charlie McCarthy were invited to narrate Mickey and the Beanstalk. Bergen and McCarthy were among radio's top talents. They're a ventriloquist duo, and they would later return to Disney to star in Walt's first television production, 1 Hour in Wonderland, that was broadcast on Christmas Day, 1950. A fun and fancy fact on top of another fun and fancy fact is in the history of the Academy Awards. I mean, I really love all the Academy Awards fun facts. And this one is always on the top of my list. So only 2 specially designed Oscars have been presented. So one in honor of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs that was presented to Walt Disney, and it has 1 full-size Oscar and 7 tiny little statuettes, and this special Oscar is on display in our awards lobby. The other honorary Academy Award was presented to Edgar Bergen, and it is a wooden Oscar statuette complete with a hinged jaw. And I think it looks like it's made of wood. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And that was for the creation of Charlie McCarthy in 1938. So I just think those are a fun kind of how those two were celebrated by the Academy Awards, and they had kind of a storied history together with Disney projects. So what's your favorite fun and fancy fact about Fun and Fancy Free, Chris?
Well, my fun and fancy fact isn't exactly the fun and fancy factception that yours was, but very important to me for reasons I'll go into in a sec. My favorite fun and fancy fact about Fun and Fancy Free is that the Mickey and the Beanstalk segment was the first time that Walt delegated the voice of Mickey Mouse to someone else. And that someone else was Disney legend and one-man sound effects wizard, Jimmy McDonald. And that leads me to introduce our brand new segment in our Museum Musings episode, the Swiss Family Research Treehouse, where Bri and I, a couple of absent-minded researchers, will pick a topic and do a quick deep dive into what we learned. In our roles, we were often asked historical questions about Walt Disney for different projects, and we thought it would be fun to share some of those with you. Now, not to make everything about me, but if you remember, Bri, my very first blog for the museum that started me on the path to sitting right here as your co-host was a small piece on Disney legend Jimmy McDonald for his birthday.
I do remember that.
Yeah. It was. I reread it recently, and I was like, wow, I used to write really well.
You still do. Congratulations.
Thank you. Not fishing there, but during production of Mickey and the Beanstalk, Walt found the demands of the studio had increased to the point where he no longer had the time to go into the soundstage to record Mickey's dialogue. He trusted that Jimmy, with his prodigious talents, would be able to carry on in his stead. Walt's trust was not misplaced. While McDonald was the man responsible for replicating both common and unique background sound effects for Disney's cartoons and true-life adventure films a little later, he certainly was no stranger to character voices either. He was the seminal voice of Chip the Chipmunk, as well as the source of some signature dwarf yodeling, whistling, and sneezing for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. His selection as Mickey's new voice perhaps made McDonald the frontrunner for future Disney mice as well, as he would go on to voice Jacques and Gus in Cinderella and the Dormouse in Alice in Wonderland. What is your first topic, Brie?
Well, Chris, as you know, I love doing deep dives. I love doing research. We get the odd end question, and I love to go down the rabbit hole. So, my first topic is about Walt and his history with the University of Southern California, USC. This was actually a topic I researched back in 2018, but I just think about how this was like really interesting time, and I just found it so much fun to look into. So not a ton has been written in like Disney editions, the books that we kind of commonly will peruse. So it wasn't in the Bob Thomas book, not a lot of information. So kind of had to do some different types of research. So many university archives are available to the public. And so sometimes doing a very calculated Google search can lead you in the right direction. Luckily, USC has archived and made it digitally available all of their past articles and alumni reviews that I was able to kind of search through. So, luckily, putting in Walt Disney and the kind of time period I was looking for. I had a general idea of when Walt was part of the Trojaneers. I'll get a little more into that in a second, but based on kind of a lifetime member award we had from them in our collection, and I knew there had to have been some articles written about the famous Walt Disney, who was so involved with USC athletics during the 1930s. I feel like anybody would have written lots of articles about that. Sure enough, I was right. So USC's polo tradition started and kind of flourished during the 1930s and 40s. In 1934, a group of USC students formed the first USC polo team, and their very first match was against Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse team. USC did triumph 7-6. This was during the time when Walt had his own polo team made up of studio employees, and it was a great way for him to stay active. So I was able to find a great article that was written for the 1939 issue of Southern California Alumni Review titled "A Trojaneer in Mickey Mouse Land." That's from USC's archive. Now, Walt was a founding member of the Trojaneers Booster Club in 1934, second vice president in 1937, and president in 1939. In 1937, it was noted in the Southern California Alumni Review at the time that, quote, he had not missed a Trojan game in many years, end quote. I don't know how true that is. I beg to differ because this was a really busy time for him. I can't imagine that he was able to make every single game, but that's just conjecture on my part.
That sounds like it sounds like something that he would have told somebody who was interviewing him for USC. That is not maybe not 100% accurate, but I'm sure he made it out to several games. But maybe that his perfect attendance was a little exaggerated.
Yeah, this is the time of 1937 when that was published. Snow White was coming out. I think things were really busy, but glad he made time to have some other activities to visit. In another article published in the November 3rd, 1939 Daily Trojan announcing Walt as the president of the Trojaneers, the article was titled, quote, "Know Your Trojans, Mickey Mouse creator heads Trojaneer Club." In later years, Walt explained what the Trojaneers were. Quote, "It's composed of men who didn't go to college, who give jobs to those who did, athletes particularly," end quote. So the Trojaneers were founded in 1934 and was the result of a suggestion that all those who held season tickets to Trojan games be organized to meet the team and coaches and to become better acquainted with the university. Walt would later have, more involvement with USC. Walt's eldest daughter, Diane, our co-founder of the museum, would later attend USC, where she would meet her husband, Ron Miller, a member of the USC football team, on a blind date. So there's just a little bit of history of Walt and his involvement with USC.
Has there been arguably a more successful Trojaneer than Ron Miller to go from playing football to getting a job at the studio, producing some films, and then eventually becoming CEO of the Walt Disney Company?
I mean, that's pretty good. But I will say, on technicality, Ron was not a Trojaneer. He was a Trojan. The Trojaneers were meant for those who did not attend a university. So, but I do like the fact that, Walt knew that he wasn't he didn't have higher education. And it was something that he actually, he received honorary awards from Yale and Harvard and one other. Can you guess it?
USC, right?
Okay,
Or
yeah.
UCLA?
Oh, I think it's UCLA. I was testing you and I didn't know the answer. I'll have to look that up. But he did receive some honorary degrees, and I know that those really meant a lot to him. And so I think that the Trojaneers was a really interesting thing to be a part of because it's, he said it's composed of men who didn't go to college but who give jobs to those who did. And I know that Walt always valued his education. I would note that Diane didn't finish getting her degree at USC, and I know that she had expressed that it was kind of, she felt really disappointed in that. But her father knew that education is not for everyone, and that, even though he had wanted his children to get a higher education, it wasn't necessary to be a successful person. And so I really love that sentiment.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you have a research topic for us to explore, email us at podcast@wdfmuseum.org. Thank you for tuning in to WD-FM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at WDF Museum for all the latest updates.
And from both of us and the horses of the USC polo team, keep moving forward.
Bye.